Welcome to another episode of Comedy Wham Presents with me, your host, Valerie, and sometime co-host, Ms. Purrington. ComedyWham.com is your place to go for features about all Austin comedy. You can keep up with us on Twitter and Instagram at Comedy Wham or on our Comedy Wham Facebook page. In addition to podcasts, Comedy Wham brings you articles, album reviews, our advice column, Rochelle Takes on Comedy, and we've also got a festivals page. And our FPIA 2022 page where you can keep up with all the contest results. And of course, we're best known for our events page for live shows in Austin, Houston, and DFW. If you're a comic in those cities and want your show featured on the calendar, go to the events page and click Submit a Show to complete the survey. Tag us on your Instagram stories and we'll share your show promo. Looking for ways to support all these resources we provide? You can donate to Comedy Wham on PayPal, Venmo, or even Patreon. Search for Comedy Wham on Patreon and check out our subscriber perks. Now let's get back to our podcast. Launched in 2016, the Podcast Project brings you funny people and their stories. As a fan, I like to delve into a comic's background and motivations, and we usually take a detour along the way. Consider the interview a way for you to get to know the folks that make the Austin comedy scene one of the best in the country. If you like this podcast, please rate and review us. Today, this is our third interview with our guest. First in 2016 in our very early days, then again in 2018, and each has been preceded by pretty big leaps in her career. What's always stood out for me is that everything that she's ever tried, she's succeeded at, and that goes back to something we talked about in that 2016 episode. She's a 2017 fresh face for Just for Laughs. She's currently on Comedy Chingonas on HBO Max, This Joka on Roku, and she recently landed her first guest star role on The Garcias on HBO Max. She released her debut album, My Birthday Is Tomorrow, in 2020. She's got a podcast with her longtime best friend, Michael Folk, called I'm Not Busy. She moved to LA, but during the pandemic, quietly returned to Austin. And this year, she was voted Best Stand-Up Comic in Austin by the Austin Chronicle and was named on Variety's top 10 comics to watch. And last but not least, she has been opening for Chelsea Handler's Vaccinated and Horny Tour. And now, welcome back. Comedy Wham presents our guest, Vanessa Gonzalez.
Hello. Hi.
Welcome back, Vanessa.
Hi. Thanks so much for having me back. I'm excited.
Yeah, this is our third time together. This is the first time that due to your crazy busy schedule, we're doing it by Zoom now. So, it's funny with some of the comics, that I meet with regularly just to kind of do check-in podcasts, which the big one that I meet with or record with is Jeremiah Watkins, who I met at the hour. And it's like incrementally, you have less and less time. And then this year, what was funny is I had to work through his manager just to get time because he's so busy that he had to figure out, he'd let her figure out exactly when he'd have to plan for me. So it's like, and your schedules just keep like blowing up.
Yeah, well, it's funny. This weekend, one of my best friends since 6th grade got married. So we've been just I was a bridesmaid and, so I had a lot of duties and the wedding was Friday and then there was the after wedding yesterday. So I woke up late. So I was like, I'm going to make this, I got to just wake up and hop on because it was a wild weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things that I want to say from the get-go about you and like all the things that have been blowing up for you is like you're still, Vanessa from Laredo at your core, and I love that. Like I was re-listening to your album yesterday, and one of the through lines that's always been there about you, Vanessa, is your absolute love of your parents. And it just comes through like, the silly taunting of your mother in comedy, but it's so clear that you love her. And she had a health challenge over the last few years. And at your core, like you love your parents and you're still best friends and you podcast with Michael. Mm-hmm. And everybody here in Austin loves you. And that really came through with that Best of Austin Comics vote in the Chronicle.
Yeah. That definitely, caught me off guard, because I had, moved, everything shut down in 2022 or 2020. And, yeah, well, I was in LA. I had done like the big LA move, and then when everything shut down, most of the way I was able to live in LA was I had to tour to afford to live there. So it kind of felt like I just had to pay for an address, and that's how people think you're legit if you have an LA address. Yeah. So I was like, okay, I'll play this game. And I was doing that, and me and my boyfriend were long distance. And then everything shut down, and me and my roommate were both out of work, and we were like, I guess we should just go home because we can't afford to pay this rent with neither of us working. So then she went back home to Alabama. I went back home to Austin. It was luckily my boyfriend was still in Austin. So I just came back. And we thought it was just going to be a little while, and then it just kept going and going. And even now, I kept checking in with friends in LA or even my agents. I'm like, do I need to go back yet? And they're like, there's no rush. Everything's still closed. Everything's on Zoom, and we'll still like figure it out, but there's no rush back. And that's what I kept hearing is like, don't rush back because everything's, and being California, they were way more strict for longer than us here in Texas. So I think that's why everyone moved here during the pandemic, because it was just open.
Yeah. And now the scene has blown up, and there's been such a shift in the scene that like somebody with your kind of TV and album credit, and you can be based here now and still do.
Yeah, it's been working out, and it did take a while because I think with any comedian that has moved away and then comes back to Austin, it does feel like initially you're like, oh, how did I fail? Are people going to think I failed? How, what does this mean? It's like, is it a step back? And all those thoughts come in. So then when I got the Austin Chronicle thing, and I even felt like bad, promoting it and all, because I had gotten it before, and I was like, well, I just moved back and people don't really know I'm here. So I had all this guilt around it. And then I won, and I was like, what? Oh my God. And it's been, just so overwhelming how Austin has welcomed me back. And like, when I have shows, they come out, and it's a lot to take in. Yeah.
You're our hometown hero, Vanessa.
Yeah, well, I think that's the pressure of, having moved back and all. And I was like, no, I've failed y'all. And then, just to be so, welcomed with open arms and still celebrated is so nice. And I had to do a lot of like growing and learning through the pandemic of like what, my expectations for me and the career and all that stuff. And therapy has helped a lot.
One of the things that I egregiously overlooked in talking about all of the stable things in your life, the things that ground you. And you've been with your boyfriend for a really long time now.
Yeah.
Been there, through the long distance and through the touring that you've been doing. So there's a lot of the old Vanessa that's always there is still there.
Yeah. And I think, there's been, especially with the pandemic, it was such a hard time, but, my family, we're close, my friends, my boyfriend, I always have had a great like support system which is, like, I'm so grateful. And, you know, you mentioned I always make fun of my parents, and they, you know, they love it. And I feel like I'm able to just really go in on them because I have their support and I know it's going to make them laugh. So it's all through, you know, fun and love for sure.
I still remember a memory of, it was a Cap City show. I don't remember if it was just a punch or if it was,
Mhm.
uh, something else, but I remember your mom there and her, like, she was in a full costume regalia, like
Oh,
colored
yes.
and she was just, she was beaming. And, you know, it's just, it warms your heart to see, you know,
Yeah.
parents so supportive of their child. Cause that's a through line that I hear when I talk to comics is, you know, parents have their expectations and the pressures that they put on their child. And then, you know, comedy doesn't pay very well when you're first starting
Yeah.
out. And
Hmm.
so, you know, some parents don't like that at all.
Oh yeah. And it's like, I can honestly say, like, they've never discouraged me. They've always been like, yeah, do it. We think you're funny. And, you know, they were always like, well, have a day job and pay your bills. We're not going to help you, but if you're going to do it, yeah, do it. And, you know, they've always come to shows, and, you know, Laredo's 4 hours away from Austin, and they, you know, constantly drive up if I have a show or they want to see. And my older brother is also, he's in a salsa band, so they go see him too. And they're just always like, we want to be there front row, and, you know, with bells and bows on. And in the beginning, my mom would do too much with, like, I'm going to bring signs and, like, be like she's going to a football game. So we had to talk to her and be like, no signs, no balloons. 'Cause she wants to bring, like, flowers and balloons every show. And we're like, it's not even like that big a show. I'm going up at, like, you know, late, and no one else is getting balloons. So please don't. Yeah. So she gets every show is exciting for her, but, you know, as a comic, you're like, oh, this is just a regular show. It's not a big deal. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's dig into some of the things that have changed for you in the last couple of years. And I'm just going to
Yeah.
go to the hard hitting question here that I have
Hmm.
been wanting to know since I saw your Instagram post about this. What is
Hmm.
the craziest thing about writing on a private jet?
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's crazy. And it's scary. I don't really, um, every time, the first time I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. I got the pictures, and then we did it, and I get so motion sick,
Oh,
and you know, you feel everything, and, it's so little, and you see what the pilots see 'cause there's no door. So, and I'm like, I don't want to see what the pilot sees, you know, it's like, I don't want the front view of us, like, going up and all. So it's like cool initially. And I've only done it twice now, I think, yeah, 2 or 3 times. But yeah, after the first time I'm more like, oh no, I'm going to get sick now. So, so I take, like, my Dramamine, and I, like, prepare, but they don't tell me ahead of time. It just kind of happens 'cause on the road, especially when we have back-to-back cities, I'm like, we're either taking a car, maybe a plane. Usually it's like regular commercial flights. And then it's like that night of, they're like, okay, we're going. And then I see it, and I'm like, oh, here I go. I need to take my Dramamine. Yeah. But it's very, go, go, go on the road. And it's nice, that it's like, the whole, like, driving up to the plane and just getting on it. I'm like, I want to do that every time. I don't want to go through airports. Yeah. And yeah, I think that's where I was able to, like, bond with Chelsea the most, because we're just sitting next to each other, and we have, like, 2 hours to just talk. There's no TVs or anything on there. So we're just, like, chatting and getting to know each other. So in that sense, it's been really great. But I'll do commercial And I prefer commercial.
The pilot door closed, please.
Yes. Yeah, it's intense.
So this experience was brought by the fact that you are opening for Chelsea Handler on her
Yeah.
tour, and I can't remember the timeline of if you started touring with her before the pandemic, or if this is something that happened. Well, I guess the title of her tour is Vaccinated and Horny, so it must
Yeah.
have kicked off at post pandemic.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, for those of us who've watched your career and, newer comics that are listening, give us some insight into how this happened, how you got connected with Chelsea and how you landed this amazing gig.
Yeah, well, I talk about it a little on stage now. So it was August or summer 2021. And so it was like, we're still in the thick of the pandemic, and I was very much like, I'm not performing during the pandemic. I was scared. I wanted to wait for the vaccine, and my boyfriend is high risk. So I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna risk both of us getting sick over a 10-minute, show here and there. So I was very like locked down, and I was doing Zoom shows, which sucked, but it helped me, keep writing, and
I
it
think
gave
art
me,
was your first, wasn't it?
yes, yeah, I did, literally, I kept doing, anytime anyone reached out, I was like, yeah, I'm going to do them. And I feel like a lot of comics like hated on them or were like, I'm not going to do those. And I was like, it's awkward, but at the end of them, I'm like, I still heard a little laughs, and it still feels a little good, like to try new stuff. So I was doing all that, and I would get offers to do live shows, but I was still like, I don't know. And then one day I get this Instagram message.
No.
Yeah. And it's from Chelsea Handler, and she's like, I saw your Comedy Central special. You're great. Do you want to open for me on the road? And I was like, uh and then
This is a spam account.
yeah, I went to the account, and then my first like initial thought was like, oh, I don't even follow her. So I need to follow. I had to follow her back, and then that felt awkward because I'm like, I know she's gonna see me just follow. Um, so then I was like, yeah, sure. I just like at first, and then I didn't know if it was her or somebody runs her account, but it was her. And but I just responded like, yeah, that'd be great. And she reached out to my reps, and, at first it was just one show, and it was the first show of the whole tour in Santa Barbara. And, I was nervous because I hadn't been performing live. And I was like, this is going to be my, like, one of the first shows back, opening for Chelsea Handler with like thousands of people, and, like, it's still COVID. And so it was like tons of anxiety around it of like, have I lost it? Am I still good? Or, you know, um, so, and I'm like,
To do.
I'm sorry.
How much time were you asked to do?
At first she said 20 minutes, and I was like, okay, I could do that. And I had written like some pandemic stuff, and I have like a big chunk about the ice storm, the snowpocalypse, and what I went through in that. And I wasn't sure if it was going to translate, outside of Texas, because I was here the whole time. So a lot of my new stuff is very like, I'm in Austin, I'm in Texas things. Um, so I was like, okay, I guess this is like an audition show. See if like we click, if I do well, and if, I don't think she's just going to invite anybody on tour if like you don't vibe, because you're spending a lot of time together, and it's like very close quarters a lot of the time. So I was like, I think this is going to be like a vibe check audition. And so I went and I did the show in Santa Barbara, and I did all of my like new stuff, and it like went well, and I felt good about it. And there was something about being back on that stage, and like even in front of this in Santa Barbara, it was like all white. I told her, I was like, it feels like White Lotus here. But so it was like, I was like, I don't know. I'm talking about all this, being Mexican and Texan, and people don't like Texas at that time. Well, now. Yeah. So, but it went well, and then I hung out with her after a bit, and then after that I came home and I was like, well, I'm never gonna see her again, probably. And then she asked me to like be on the rest of the tour, which was like a great surprise at the time. I remember when I got the email where she like sent me more dates, and I was like emotional because I hadn't had work for 2 years, and I hadn't been making any money, and I was like, what am I gonna do? I was thinking about getting a day job again, because I was like, I put all my eggs in the wrong basket. This is what's gonna happen to stand up, live shows, all that. Mm-hmm. So when she like sent me this, the dates, and I was like, oh my God, like usually I'm like, I'll have a gig a month, or, and then I'm like worried about the next month. And that's how it kind of goes. So like, okay, now I got to scramble and get gigs for the next month and keep on hustling. So for her to send like all those dates for like a year, I was just like, wow, it just felt like security, at least for 1 year, which is like not something I've had in a long time, since I've done like full-time stand up, and with the pandemic and all, where I was just like so grateful.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm fixated on something that you said, that after that first night you came home and said, well, that, that was done. She'll never ask me back. Was that your usual Vanessa self-deprecation, or did you genuinely think something had happened that, you wouldn't get another shot to keep doing that touring?
No, I mean, I thought everything, like, I thought I had a good set, and afterwards she was very nice, and like we hung out, but I've opened for other people before, and it just felt like too good to be true to be like asked to do the whole tour. I was like, maybe I'll get a couple dates, maybe here a handful, but I did not expect like to be on a full ass tour. Like I've never, I never imagined that. And especially like a theater tour like hers, where it's like, 2 to 4,000 people a night. And wow. I was just like, what? It just came out of nowhere. Especially like having those hard 2 years of the pandemic, with like not working, not knowing what to do. And then my mom got cancer, and it just felt like everything just kept piling on. So then to have this like this door open up, I was like, what? Yeah. So yeah, I think it was just because so many bad things happened in a row that this just felt like, well, this can't be real. Yeah. I'm never going to talk to them again. Yeah. Yeah.
Doing a consistent amount of large theater shows, do you have to pinch yourself that you get to speak and do your comedy in front of such big audiences?
Yeah, it's been so like, I've definitely felt how it's like changed me and made me grow as a stand-up. Like I just feel like when you get so many reps navigating a crowd like that, especially, having the chance to do it all over the country, seeing all types of different crowds, and adjusting and kind of like riding the waves. What do they like? What do they don't like? But it's been interesting, like everywhere I go, I always mention like I'm from Laredo, and there will be a couple like, woo! And I'm like, how? Like in DC or in Cedar Rapids, like there's always like a woo! And it's so cool just to kind of hear or feel like there's other, people from the border around there. And then even if there's not what I'm saying, like they're still like connecting to it. And, me talking about Texas and, I'm like, fuck Greg Abbott and, the abortion stuff and all. And like people are on the same page and like want Texas to change all over, yeah. So that's been like refreshing. And if sometimes where we're at, I'm like, oh no, we literally did Maricopa, Arizona, where that's where they like started the whole like stop the count. Like the shit went down there. And I was like, why are we here? Like, are we gonna like get threats or something? But I think with Chelsea, she has such a like fan base, like they know what they're getting with her. No, I don't think if there's a Republican in the crowd or a conservative, like old straight white dude, like somebody dragged them there and they're not gonna talk or they're just gonna sit like this the whole show, with their arms crossed. So for the most part, I feel like if you're going to a Chelsea Handler show, you know what she's gonna talk about and push buttons and stuff. Yeah.
Right. Well, aside from the tour, you've had some other big splashes with when we recorded your second interview, you were about to record your Comedy Central stand-up special.
Oh, wow.
So that's been almost 4 years now. That special has been out, and you've gotten more time through I feel so weird saying it, but I know how the accent sounds in my head, the Comedy Chingonas.
Yeah.
The Garcias and this Joka. And it's really cool to lean into like being Hispanic and being a comic. And, I was drawing this mental parallel in my mind with your guest, spot on the Garcias that, we just saw Martin Urbano have a guest spot on this Fool. And it's like, look at these two babies of Austin comedy. The nicest people on earth who got like really cool opportunities because he's on the Jimmy Fallon show and you're on this tour and you're all still so nice. And like, it's just so cool watching you blow up. How is it being like on screen this much?
Well, it's so funny. Like, I guess I don't, it doesn't really like hit me. I mentioned I was at my best friend's wedding this weekend, and it's all like people from Laredo and people I went to high school with, and everyone's Mexican speaking in Spanish or Spanglish or whatever. And they're like telling me that I'm famous. And I'm like, what? Shut. And I'm like, no, I'm not. And they're like, yeah. And they're like, take a picture with me. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like my friend's mom who I like grew up with, I was like, I would sleep over at your house all the time. And, so it's just, I think the fact that's just a weird thing to digest is like, especially people from home seeing me as like, you're famous and why did Will Smith slap that guy? And I'm just like, what are y'all talking about? So it's definitely weird. And even my nephew, he's 10 and we'll go out to dinner, whatever. And he's like, she's famous. Do you know that she's famous? I'm like, no, nobody knows. Nobody knows anything. Y'all stop telling people that. Yeah. And, I feel like, it doesn't hit me until like people start saying that. And I'm like, well, I guess, yeah, but not really.
Well,
Yeah.
I didn't know until I was doing my research, to be honest, about the comedy Chingonas, and that seemed like a really really cool special. It was
Yeah.
Danny Trejo's involved, and it was recorded in San Antonio, so it must have been like a massive love fest of support. Uh,
Oh, it's so funny. Like, to be honest, I thought, I was just doing the festival. I knew they were taping, but I thought they were just taping for like fun.
uh
And so I did the set and then like a lot of my family and friends came. And so I felt like it was very loose. I was cursing a lot, like if I knew it was going to be taped, I wouldn't have cursed. I wouldn't have been I did like a lot of, I did a Laredo shout out because I knew my friends were there. So I felt like it was a good set and I had fun, but not a tape set that I would have done. And then during the pandemic, they called and they were like, we're going to make this a special. Can you sign these forms? And I needed money then. So I was like, sure, let's put it on the air, please.
what kind of things? Uh, I don't know if I want to get to this just yet. So let me look at my notes and my questions.
Yeah, no worries.
Okay, maybe I will ask this. With these bigger and bigger opportunities that you're getting, what has your goal for being on your own TV show shifted, or is it still like that's your eye on the prize still?
Yeah, I think I still have that goal. And, yeah, I'm like, however, whatever it takes, or I'm willing to take like the risk or not risk, but submitting stuff and trying to get more into like TV writing and all, but it's definitely a hard nut to crack into that world, writing and, selling a TV show and doing pitches and all that. It's like a whole new world to learn. But I'm excited to like learn more about it. And, being on the Garcias was like my first time on a real set. And it was just so cool, like getting that little like taste of it. Like, oh, this is how it works. And it's just like a lot of sitting around for a long time. And, but yeah, I think like, my agents often ask regularly, like every year, like, do you want to submit for SNL or, do a thing? And I'm just like, I just want my show. That's like what I want to do. I want to host SNL
Yeah.
and I want to have my own show. And I feel like I want to stick to that track and we'll see if I get there.
When you first mentioned that as a goal, you didn't know how industry
Mhm.
mechanics work. Now that you're closer and closer to it, like, are there things that you didn't think about back then about what it would take to get that show? And has that how have you changed the things that you do? Like you mentioned, it's hard to learn how to write for a TV show, or is that something that you're taking classes so that you understand how to do it, or, whatever it is, however the sausage gets made, what steps are you able to take to
Mm.
learn at that higher level than the pie in the sky dream that you had, back in 2016?
Yeah, well, I did when I first moved to LA in 2018, and that's like always been my goal. So I was like, okay, I took a TV writing course, which was super helpful because once you get to LA and you have like reps and all, they're like, well, write a pilot. And at first it seems like, well, they're just giving me busy work, I think, but no, it's true. Like everyone always has to have like a pilot ready to like submit, or when you go into meetings, like, yeah, I wrote a pilot. So I was like, well, how does one structure a pilot? How do you do that? So I took a class, and the teacher, who's a really good friend of mine now, his name's Ernie Bustamante. He was great, and he's a TV writer, and it's just been so great to like have friends that are in like TV writing, and to learn from. And then once I had my pilot that I wrote, I realized like, oh, you have to have like 2, 3, 4 pilots, not just one. When you go in meetings, I was like, well, I have my one idea, and like pitching, and then everyone's like, well, no, you need to have like 5 ideas so that they can pick, or, so then I'm like, okay. And then, watching people like, Danny McBride, for instance, who is just constantly churning out shows that he's starring in. And I forget his name from Reno 911, but he is also just like constantly selling shows. And it's like, that's a thing that I didn't know before, that it's not just like, oh, you get your one idea and your one show and then you're rich. It's like, the reality is, it's like, oh, you have to just keep writing and selling shows. That's, Mindy Kaling and all. It's like Tina Fey. No one just has like their one show and they're done. So that was like eye opening, and kind of like I had to like gears of like, oh, okay, if that's the path I need to get on board with, then I need to step up my writing and step up my like, elevator pitches and all that stuff. But I think mostly what I didn't know before is that it's just like, confidence, when you go into meetings and stuff, I think that's what they want to see, is just like, they want to see somebody that knows, like, I have a good idea for a show. I should star in a show. Get, somebody that they're like, yeah, we believe you. But if you go in like, can you give me a show, please? I promise it'll be good. And I think that's how I was definitely approaching it at the beginning. I was very intimidated. I didn't know. And just learning how much I was getting in my own way, like with my own insecurities of like, my weight or my looks or whatever. I'm like, oh, they're probably not, or they're going to think this, they're going to, like, me assuming all these things, is getting in my own way, when the reality is like, I go in the meetings and I'm like, oh, well, people keep putting me on TV. What, well, when am I going to learn that it's me? I'm the one telling myself this. No one else has said it. No, we see on TV and in movies how like cutthroat agents or industry people are like mean, or they're going to tell you like, you'll never make it in this business. No one has ever said that. It's just been me the whole time. Yeah. So I think, that's the thing that I didn't know, is that I need to get out of my own way and hop on board with everyone else and believe in myself. Yeah.
This is such a silly observation for me to make, but I hadn't gone to your website until I was putting together all my prep. And, I have to say that when I saw the homepage picture that you use, for that, and I don't know if you remember it, because, you probably delegate homepage stuff to web page stuff to somebody else, but I'm like, I love this picture so much because it's you with your arm raised with the microphone, and you're wearing this beautiful, I can't remember if it's a dress or a jumper. I'm like, that's the confident Vanessa that we've been looking for.
Yeah.
That picture just made me so happy to see, because, I'm sure it was all professionally taken and whatever, but I'm like, confidence, it's there. She's finally let, her career and her confidence level, get equal, get on the same page.
Yeah, and I feel like it's just happened, I'm gonna be 37 next week, and I've been doing this, for a long time, but even with like, Comedy Central and HBO and all, I was always still doubting. And then with the pandemic, it was just like a huge, also like another weight on of like, I fucked up, I'm failing, I'm doing, I should have done this, I should have done whatever. I shouldn't care about COVID like all the other comics, and I need to keep doing it, or, like during the pandemic, it definitely felt like, what's the right answer? What's the right choice? I don't know what to do, but through therapy and all, I think that what's helped me now, and I said recently to my friends and my boyfriend that I've never felt more confident as a writer or performer. And it's so nice to say that out loud, because I've never let myself even say that. I would be like, no, I can't. If I say that, that means like I'm, conceited or whatever, but it's been so great to just like own it and be like, yeah, I'm fucking good at this. I am good, and it's just so freeing, and it's helped, it's helped me just be a better writer and a better performer. And, I just feel so like, yeah, it's taken a while to make that breakthrough. And I think, with, I was doing therapy throughout the pandemic, because everything was just bad thing after bad thing. And it just helped me realize that. And I think I remember from like a previous, interview, I don't know if it was our first or second, but I remember being like, I just want to be happy, and that was like my goal for comedy. I was like, I just want to be happy. And I think when I look back and I said that, it was because at the time, in the midst of all Austin comedy, everyone's just like hustle, hustle, hustle. I did feel like from the beginning of my career to very recently, I was putting my whole worth on comedy. Like, my worth is based on if I do well in comedy. And I think a lot of comics do that. And which is why it becomes not fun or not a happy place when shit doesn't go how you want it to go. So I think making that shift of like, yeah, my worth is not comedy. My happiness cannot lie on this career and where it goes. I have to find that outside of this. And then I can just create and do whatever freely and be confident with it when it's not so weighted in like, this is all I have, but it's a hard thing to separate, especially at the beginning.
Yeah. And then I'm going to go back to our first interview, something that I always throw in your face any chance. One of the observations that I made based on learning about how you got to, 2016 version of Vanessa was everything you tried, you succeeded at.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, there are bumps in the road. There's always bumps in the road to any endeavor. But, 6 years later, look at all of the things you've gotten. And I'm so happy to see the confident Vanessa. It's so cool to.
Thanks. Yeah, it's so funny. Like, I don't know if it's just like how I grew up or my culture or whatever, but in therapy, I talk about it. I'm like, yeah, it feels nice to be like, I'm proud of myself and I'm good at what I do. And then I'm like, nobody's mad. I don't know. Like, but it's like, that's what you feel is like somebody's going to be mad or take it the wrong way. But if they do, oh well.
I mean, my dad was Hispanic, and you just never felt like you were good enough. And
right.
I think there's a lot to that in the Hispanic culture, and like, you gotta just figure it out. Even though they love you immensely, it's a lot of pressure on.
yeah, it's always, and I think also being a woman is like, being polite and
Yeah.
not taking up too much space and, but it's like, yeah, so many, especially comedians, straight male comedians get to honk their own horns or whatever and take up a lot of space. And even though with like everything that I've done, I always have to like be small and I think it was also coming up in like that environment of when I was in the new movement and that improv scene, it definitely felt like I had to keep small also, and I couldn't, if I was, doing scenes with a group and I got too many laughs, I felt bad, or there was always this guilt of being like too funny or too good. So I've always like had that ever since I started, was like guilt of succeeding or being too much. And I'm learning that I don't need to feel bad about it.
Isn't that ironic that the career you're pursuing is where you are on stage, you are the center of attention, but you're counterbalancing that with this feeling of making yourself small and not noticed.
Yeah. It's,
The mind melt. No, it's good you got the therapy and the help and the support so that you can realize how weird of a message that is to navigate.
yeah. And like I said, it's definitely been like a breakthrough this year. I've felt like, oh, I'm finally like, yeah, not getting in my own way. I want these things. I want to pursue this. I am good at this. I just need to do it. And it does take like constantly like pushing through fear, pushing through anxiety, pushing through that guilt. But then you just get better at it each time. Yeah.
You're breaking a habit that you've built your entire lifetime, so it takes
Right.
time to change that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, I want to talk about two other quicker things, and one
Mhm.
is you've got your podcast with your best friend Michael.
Yeah.
I remember seeing the last. Oh, I'm mad that I don't remember the name, but it was the last improv show that you and Michael had at
Yeah.
theater. I went to your final, show of that.
Mhm.
So this is a friendship that you've had for goodness, years and years and years, and you're podcasting together. And
Yes.
tell us about the podcast.
Oh, the podcast is called I'm Not Busy, and we started it in the middle of the pandemic when everything shut down, because it felt like, the virus and Trump and everything was so heavy that we couldn't see anybody. So like every phone call, every Zoom catch up just felt like, how are you doing? And everyone's like, not good, like not good. So we were like, I want to talk to you, but I want to have fun and kind of have a break from this bullshit and just talking about how scared we are, how sad we are. So we intentionally would call each other up and be like, hey, can I talk to you about snow globes? And it's like, yes. And then we would just talk about a mundane topic and it would be so fun. And we would just kind of riff with each other and we're like, we should be recording these things. They're so fun and stupid. So then that's what the podcast is each week we call each other and we spring a topic on each other that's just out of the blue, like Build-A-Bear workshops or, vampires. And then we'll just talk about it. And it's been so nice. Like I've done, like dual stand up with Michael, which is pretty much a improv set where we're just bantering. And I feel like we could do that for an hour because we're Michael's just like my comedy soulmate. We've, as soon as we met, we were like on the same page. We get each other, and through improv and sketch and stand up, anytime I have like stand up bits where I'm like, I think this is funny, but I haven't gotten it there yet. If I run it through Michael like is like, oh, I got it. This is where I got it. And I'm like, yes, this is what I needed. just like a little boost to get into like the playful land.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love Michael and just talking about silly things. If you can ever see Michael do stand up, I definitely recommend it. He's so funny.
I don't know if he's like back in Austin or he was just coming through. I know he did a Sure Thing a
Hmm.
couple of weeks back. So
Yeah. But yeah, it's been so fun just keeping our friendship. And I think that's been always like the glue is like how well, even when we're not recording or if we're just hanging out, watching a movie, our favorite thing to do is just like watch shitty movies and just make fun of them together. So it's just been a blast.
nice.
Yeah.
Okay, then the last thing that I had on my list is this episode is actually releasing in early October, and
Hmm.
you are actually going to be one of the headliners of the Altercation Festival
Yes.
of October. So that's a pretty exciting and fun way for folks to get to see you on a smaller stage.
Yeah, I'm excited about it though. I start tour with Chelsea October 1st and it goes through December. So I'm not able to perform in Austin as much this fall, but that's why I'm super excited to be at Altercation Fest. Yeah.
It's a great festival that I've seen a couple of years in a row now, and
So great. They've got a lot of great headliners this year. Yeah.
yeah, including Vanessa Gonzalez.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, Vanessa, as we wind down, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you want people to know about you, upcoming projects that you've got on your plate? Oh, and before we do that, I actually want to go back to your SNL comment.
Mhm.
I am going to be freaking out when you host SNL, and as I have been freaking out this week with the news that, another Austinite has
I
on the
know.
SNL cast. Congratulations to Devin Walker.
Oh my God. So cool.
Amazing. And
I know.
our little ritual, because we watch SNL religiously whenever we see Andrew Dismukes come up on the features, which we're fully expecting he gets bumped to cast this year. He had a phenomenal last season.
100%. Yes.
We always scream, Andrew!
Yes. Oh, same. Ever since Andrew's been on the cast, I've watched every week and it's just so exciting. And I'm so excited Devin's going to be on there. And then I'm just like, well, now I'm more excited to host that I'll have friends there.
Exactly. Okay,
Yeah.
so that aside, tell us about stuff we may have missed in our conversation and upcoming things.
Well, yeah, just upcoming. I'm going to be touring all fall, October through December mostly with Chelsea, but I'll be headlining, in Chicago at the Lincoln Lodge, October 7th. And then I'll be headlining the Comedy Store Belly Room in LA, October 12th. Yeah. I'm really pumped about that. And then Altercation Fest, October 19th here in Austin. And then I have some more dates in December. But you can follow me at Vanessa G Comedy, on Instagram and Twitter and vanessacomedy.com.
So you can check out that cool picture that I was raving about.
Yes.
Well, that is a wrap on Comedy Wham Presents Vanessa Gonzalez Part 3. Hopefully there'll be a Part 4 and 5 if you'll make the time for me.
Yes. I love these.
We hope you've enjoyed learning about how Vanessa continues to be the comedic genius that you heard today just as much as I have. Be sure to listen to her first and second episodes. And what we didn't talk much about was that album, It's My Birthday Tomorrow, which as I was re-listening, I realized the title comes from a joke that I think has been in your repertoire for maybe the longest time. It's one of your longest running jokes in your portfolio.
Yes.
Joke.
Yeah, from being my preschool teacher days. Yes.
All right. Well, Vanessa's obviously been building and is building up to an incredible career. So we're very, very, very proud of you, Vanessa.
Oh, thank you.
This has been Comedy Wham Presents Vanessa Gonzalez. I'm Valerie, and that's been funny. Thank you, Vanessa.
Thank you, Valerie.